Hi, welcome to Cyprus. This is Aphrodite Hills Golf Resort. My name is Chris Ryan. In this video, we're talking all about pitch shots. We're talking about how to use the bounce, what that term actually means, and then more importantly, I've got a practical drill which you can use to help you do just that. So what do we mean by using the bounce? Well, it's all to do with how the golf club interacts with the ground. If we take a look at the golf club, the two things that are more likely to make contact with the ground would be the leading edge, which is where the club face meets the sole, or the sole of the golf club, sometimes known as the bounce. And there lies what we're trying to do. We want to make contact with the ground using the sole of the golf club. The way that the golf club is designed, the sole is cambered and it's rounded. And what that means is it will do exactly as the name suggests. It will hit the ground and it will bounce. Now, what this means is the golf club's interaction with the turf is much easier to manage. If we start to interact with the leading edge, which is effectively a little bit sharper, what we're going to find happens is there's a lot more interaction with the ground. It's steeper, the club loses a lot of its speed, and it doesn't tend to continue on its path. What that means for you as the golfer is that you have to be a lot more precise in your contact in order to pull the shot off. If you use the bounce, you can actually, within reason, be a little bit out with the contact and the result is still going to be acceptable. It's probably not going to be as good as it would be if it was a perfect shot, but it's going to be acceptable. You're probably going to be putting with your next shot. So, let's move those golf balls out of the way. We'll come to why they're important in a moment. Let's talk a little bit about how we set ourselves up to use the bounce. Well, the first thing would be, I want you to set up with the golf club relatively vertical. So you can see here, I've got the club shaft pretty close to vertical. I certainly don't have any forward lean. And if anything, I would rather have some lean away from the target, because what that does is it exposes the bounce and it raises that leading edge away from the ground. And that's really what we're trying to do with these shots. We're trying to get that leading edge to be away from the ground as opposed to being presented to the ground, which would happen if the handle was forward. Once I've got myself set up with the handle about neutral, I want to also feel that the zip, the buttons, or my sternum are about in line with that golf ball. And you'll see here I've created that. Now, that relationship between the golf club and my sternum is really the key thing. How wide I have my feet is a little bit of a personal preference. I would have my preference, but I wouldn't be sort of dead set on getting everyone to set up in the same way. I can have my feet this wide and create the same relationship as I could with my feet a little bit closer. My preference would be to have the heels a little closer with the feet slightly flared out. Notice also how my shoulders are relatively level. I know they're not level, but what I do not want is I do not want any of this in there. Notice how my hands have got a little forward, my lead shoulder's got a little higher, my sternum has gone back behind the ball. We're trying to keep things quite neutral. You'll also notice here how I've got a fraction of bend in my arms. I'm certainly not trying to lock my arms as straight as I can have them. A little bit of flex on my arms is going to keep a nice bit of tension out. Now, what am I trying to do in my golf swing? Well, effectively, I'm trying to return the golf club to impact in its vertical condition. If I have very little wrist set in the backswing, or if I have a lot of wrist set in the backswing, doesn't really mean I can't still return that golf club to a vertical position. What we do with the wrists in the backswing would really be depending on what we actually want the golf ball to do. We may well come to that in a different video. The purpose of today's video is to talk about how we want to be at impact using the bounce. Now, for many of you, when you play this shot, you will have a little bit of set in the wrists. This should be absolutely fine. So in order for you to return the club to vertical, you are going to need to have what I would term a little bit of throw. A little bit of throw feeling is that right wrist is starting to work towards this flex position, and that accelerates the club head past the hands. And that's going to help us achieve this nice neutral club shaft at impact. What I don't want you to do is have this little bit of wrist set in the backswing and then hold on to it. Because when I hold on to it, the handle leads forward. I tend to have to drop my trail shoulder in an attempt to get down to the golf ball. And I end up creating an impact which is very similar to the setup that we were trying to avoid in the first place. So try and keep this trail shoulder fairly high, and in that downswing through impact, don't be afraid to have a little bit of throw. I'm feeling like I'm throwing the golf club, and that helps it get to vertical. Little practice swings. In your practice swings, there should be no divot. As you can see here, I'm disturbing the grass. I'm making use of the bounce, but there is no divot. If in your practice swings you're starting to remove turf, you feel that when the club hits the ground it stops suddenly, that would be a good indication that you're using the leading edge as opposed to the bounce. The last thing I want you to focus on is having a little bit of turn through and feeling like you gain height a little bit as you do this. This is going to help you move the grip end of the club on a good path, and that good path is again going to help you utilize the sole of the golf club as opposed to the leading edge. Right, a little drill that you can do. I've got 2 golf balls out here, and what I'm very simply going to do is I'm going to place those golf balls around about a foot in front of the ball I'm hitting and a foot behind the ball. Now I've done this just inside because I'm going to do a practice first, but effectively what I'm going to try and do now is I'm going to try and make some swings where I interact with the ground, as you can see there, but I miss both of those golf balls. So this is really helping me achieve a good shallow angle of approach into the golf ball. We can hit poor pitch shots if we're too steep, but we can also hit poor pitch shots if we're too shallow. This little exercise is going to help you highlight if you fall into one of those 2 categories. So let's say I come in and I hold onto the angles too much, I'm a little bit too steep. You'll notice how I'm very, very likely to hit that second golf ball. Equally, if I'm too shallow, I'm going to hit this 3rd golf ball. So I could make some pitching motions. Too steep, I'll hit the forward ball. Okay, didn't do it that time, but you can see how I'm very, very steep, actually because the club's bouncing over the ball. But if I was too steep and I didn't hit the ground, I would hit that golf ball. And if I was too shallow, I would hit the other golf ball. So really going to give me some good feedback about whether I'm too steep or too shallow. Ultimately, we want to try and make contact with the ground, but not the other golf balls. Let me go ahead and see if I can hit a little pitch shot into this flag. You can see that the green's raised up. It is not an easy shot, and certainly using the bounce here is going to help me get that ball on that green and hopefully close to that flag. Okay, came in nice and low. That should be loaded with spin. Definitely didn't take a divot there. That's a good indication, suggests that I used the bounce, and that is exactly what I was trying to do with that golf shot. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more information next time you go and practice, leaves you in a better place to make some better moves, hit some better shots, and that is ultimately going to lower your scores. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to Aphrodite Hills for having me out here for a few days. Thank you to Golf Breaks. They made it all happen. Thank you to you for watching. All the usual stuff is down below. That's a like button, that's a comments box, and there's also a link to subscribe. So if you're not a subscriber already, go ahead and click that link. Free videos every single week, just like this one, helping you play some better golf. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again soon.